equals the city lights flickered like stars trapped beneath a black sky, and the hum of New York City vibrated through my bones as I stepped outside my apartment building. I could feel the heat of the sidewalk radiating up through my shoes, and the distant sounds of taxis screeching by filled the air with a chaotic melody that had become the soundtrack of my life. I was Liam Hargrove, 34, a name that meant little to most but felt heavy with memories and emotions. Tonight, I was not just another face in the bustling crowd. I was a man on a mission, one that had been brewing like a storm in my chest ever since I learned the truth a few months ago. The truth. That one little word had upended everything. Each step away from my apartment felt like I was leaving behind a version of myself that would never return. I was awake now, no longer the carefree guy who laughed at life's little twists. Instead, I was a man weighed down by the heavy cloak of betrayal, and the flames of revenge flickered in my heart. As I neared the corner of 47th Street, I could almost taste the bitterness of what had been stolen from me. "Hey, Liam." A voice sliced through the murmurs of the night, pulling me from my thoughts. I turned to see Derek, a friend from my college days, bounding toward me with that ever-present grin plastered on his face. I could see Derek was in his element, wearing a tailored suit and a tie that looked like it cost more than my entire wardrobe. "Liam," he clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You look like you just walked out of a funeral. What's going on, man?" I forced a smile, one that didn't reach my eyes. "Just a rough week, you know how it is, Derek." He raised an eyebrow, his expression shifting to concern. "Yeah, but you need to lighten up. How about grabbing a drink with me? I know a great place downtown." I hesitated, my mind racing back to the revelation that had shattered my world. "Actually, I have somewhere to be." "Come on, tell me it's with a girl. I need to hear some good news for once," he said, and there was that boyish charm in his tone that used to ease my worries. "It's not like that," I replied, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Then what, you going to see your mom, family stuff?" "No." The answer slipped from my lips too easily. I turned my back to him, continuing down the street, feeling the dagger of his concern prick at my resolve. Derek could not understand the depth of my turmoil. How could he? "I need to take care of something," I added, attempting to push our conversation in a different direction. He fell in step beside me, his footsteps echoing in sync with my troubled thoughts. "You know you can tell me anything, right? We've been friends for years." He searched my face for a hint of the old Liam, the one who wore his heart on his sleeve. "I know, Derek, I appreciate it. I sighed, frustration bubbling up like a volcano on the verge of eruption. "Some things are better left unsaid." "Okay," he replied, raising his hands in mock surrender. "Just know I'm here, man, whatever it is." He paused, glancing at me as we reached a busy intersection, his expression serious. "But you're not alone in this, just remember that." I mulled over his words as the traffic lights flickered above us. "Thanks." The sincerity of my voice surprised even me. I hesitated for a moment, taking in the chaotic energy of the streets bustling with life around us, the faces of strangers hurrying home, submerged in their own dramas. But I was struck by how alone I felt, the darkness of solitude swallowing my heart. The freezing air gusted around me, sharper than winter, despite the warmth of the late summer night. As the light turned green, I stepped off the curb, remembering why I had no room in my life for idle chatter right now. "Don't stay angry for too long, all right? Life's too short to be bitter." Derek reached out, giving me a light punch to the shoulder, his way of lifting my spirits. "Bye, Derek," I said, quickening my pace. I waved without looking back, the gesture feeling hollow even to me. Thoughts swirled around in my mind like leaves caught in a whirlpool. A memory suddenly hit me as I crossed 7th Avenue, a flashback to Ellen's face, the way she smiled, her laughter like soft music that would light up my darkest days. Ellen, my wife, the woman I had trusted with my heart, with my dreams. But then, those dreams shattered like glass underfoot when I discovered she had betrayed me. Just because I could not see the shards did not mean they did not cut deeply. That night 5 months ago came flooding back to me so vividly it was like I was living it all over again. I had just returned home after an exhausting day at work, the hum of Manhattan still buzzing in my ears. I walked in, expecting to find the comforting aroma of dinner wafting from the kitchen, but instead, the quiet of the apartment wrapped around me. It clung to me like a wet blanket and sent a chill down my spine. "Ellen," I called, my heart beating faster, unease crawling beneath my skin. My voice echoed through the stillness like an unwelcome specter. When I entered our bedroom, the sight before me hit like a ton of bricks. Ellen was sitting on our bed with a man I recognized, but had only met once, Brian, an old friend of hers from college. The look on her face was one I had never seen before. It was filled with panic and guilt, and those emotions twisted a knife inside me. "What is this?" I had demanded, but the chaos of emotions overwhelmed me. I remember feeling so small at that moment, like a child who had just found out Santa was not real. Slivers of betrayal coursed through me, quickly overshadowing all rational thought. "Liam, wait," Ellen had started, but I could barely listen through the rush of blood in my ears. "Get out," I had said to Brian, my voice cutting with an edge I didn't know I was capable of. "Liam, please," Ellen begged. "This isn't what it looks like." But it was exactly what it looked like, and the truth clung to the air like smoke. Brian left with a heavy heart, and we were standing there alone, a battlefield of unspoken words and guilt enveloping us. "Tell me it isn't true," I had choked out, my voice wavering dangerously. "Liam, I swear it was a mistake. It meant nothing." But nothing would ever mean so much again. All the moments I had cherished and the promises whispered in the dark were ashes in my mouth now. The apartment that once felt like home had morphed into a cage, suffocating me with memories of our love that seemed like shards of a different life. As that memory faded, I pushed past it, pressing on and trying to gather my resolve. I was on my way to confront the man who had become the embodiment of my agony. Brian Sterling, the thief who took everything from me, was a day-to-day player in what had become a spectacularly sad play of betrayal. I turned down a narrow alley, stepping through shadows, each echo of my steps drawing me closer to my confrontation. My thoughts turned to the choices I had made since that fateful night, decisions fueled by rage and pain. I had watched from a distance, observing Brian's life unfold through social media, and the way he continued free of consequence while I crumbled into a version of myself that was hardly recognizable. Justice felt elusive, like smoke slipping through fingers. I could feel my heart rate quickening, pulsing with the adrenaline that came with plotting revenge. Every step I took echoed louder in my ears, and thoughts of how I would confront him raged in my mind like a wildfire. Would I throw the first punch, yell, shatter the calm facade he wore like armor? Reaching the corner where I knew he would be, I stopped to gather my thoughts. It was a hip bar he frequented, often filled with laughter and music, a stark contrast to the storm thrumming inside me. My hands trembled at my sides, a sign that I was finally stepping past the line between the person I once was and who I had become. Suddenly, I spotted him through the tinted window. He was sitting with a group of friends, laughing with ease, a picture of nonchalance as he lifted a glass in a toast. My blood boiled at the sight of him, and I could feel the rage pulsing beneath my skin like a live wire. But in that moment, something happened that caused me to hesitate, to hold back for just a second. There was a flicker of uncertainty in my gut, an apprehension that threatened to grab hold. Could I really do this? Would I find satisfaction in causing him pain? The very thought felt foreign. But then I remembered Ellen's tear-streaked face as she pleaded for my understanding, her words echoing in my mind. It was a mistake. I gritted my teeth, pushing the doubt aside. There was no room for weakness in this moment. I was here for a reason, and I would not allow fear to cloud my intentions any longer. I walked through the door, the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses enveloping me. The atmosphere was vibrant, and for just a moment I felt out of place. Every eye in the room turned toward me, but I locked onto Brian's face, his laughter dying on his lips as our gazes met. I felt like I had slipped into a different world, one that had come to a screeching halt as he processed my presence, the intruder, the ghost of a life he had once known. "Liam," Brian managed to say, shock lacing his voice as I took purposeful strides toward him. I could feel the tension hanging thick in the air, the weight of unspoken accusations crashing around us, and I could almost hear the gears in his mind turning. "Do you want to explain what happened?" My own voice came out heavier than I intended, but I needed him to know I was done with mincing words. Can we talk about this somewhere private?" He replied, his bravado wavering as he shifted in his seat, surrounded by his friends who regarded me with wide eyes. "I think we are already in private," I shot back, the energy of the room thickening with every passing second. "What do you have to say to me, Brian? That it was a mistake? That it doesn't matter? That you didn't think of the wreckage you left behind?" The laughter faded as my words cut into the atmosphere, leaving behind an uncomfortable silence that echoed louder than any raucous cheer. Brian glanced at his friends, uncertainty cracking his facade. "Liam, let's not do this here. No, let's do this right here, right now." I felt the rush of adrenaline coursing through my veins, igniting a fire that had burned quietly for far too long. "You took everything from me. I never meant," he started, his voice shaky, but I was having none of it. "Save it," I snapped, stepping closer, my fists clenched tightly at my sides. Fueled by rage, I felt like a volcano on the verge of eruption, ready to unleash the fiery truth of his betrayal. "You ruined everything. You have no idea what it's like to watch your life crumble because of someone else's selfishness." He opened his mouth to respond, but seemed to weigh his words carefully, understanding the weight of this moment more than I had expected. I stood there, watching him, feeling the world around us dissolve into nothingness. For the first time since I confronted the truth, I felt empowered. The strength I had feared was absent surged through me like a tidal wave. "You don't know what I lost," I said, my voice lower now, laced with raw emotion. "Ellen was everything to me, and you just— Liam, please." His face was painfully earnest, the mask of arrogance slipping away. "I know I messed up, I'm sorry, but I never wanted to hurt you. I can't change what happened." "That's right. None of us can change the past, Brian. But I can change how I move forward, and I plan to start with you." For a heartbeat, I thought he might try to argue, but something in his expression flickered, a glimmer of understanding that told me he might finally be grasping the depth of his crime. It was too late for apologies. Walls had been built much too high. Across the room, I could feel the weight of judgment hanging in the air, and in that moment I realized it wasn't just me confronting Brian. We were both grappling with the consequences of our lives intertwined by betrayal. I leaned in, and in a voice just above a whisper I told him, "You think this is over. You have no idea what I plan to do next." As I turned to leave, there was a weight lifting off my shoulders, small but meaningful. The labyrinth of bitter emotions had become less of a prison, a place where I had felt lost for so long. With every step away from Brian, the flicker of my former self felt more distant, replaced instead by a new sense of purpose. My journey of vengeance had only just begun, and I intended to see it through to its fiery conclusion. Little did Brian know, I had a plan, and I would make sure he would never forget the cost of his betrayal. I stood on the edge of the rooftop, the city stretching out before me like a sprawling canvas of chaos. The neon lights flickered in rhythm with the thumping bass of some underground club below, while the distant sirens wrapped around the skyline, a haunting symphony that resonated with my thoughts. I took a deep breath, the air sharp and cold, filled with the scent of rain that had just passed, mixing with the sweeter notes of food from the street vendors below. Was that hot dogs or tacos? I leaned my elbows against the cool metal railing, the weight of my decision heavier than the skyline overhead. My heart pounded, not with fear but with a restless anticipation. I replayed the last few days in my mind like a movie on loop. How everything I cared about had been stripped away with a single betrayal. The coldness of Sarah's voice echoed in my ears. "Liam, it's not what you think." The image of her standing in the doorway of our apartment, her arms wrapped around David, laughter spilling from her lips, felt like a cruel joke that the universe was playing on me. My fingers clenched the railing, knuckles turning white as I remembered the smirk on David's face, the smug arrogance that had driven me to the edge of unraveling. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear everything down, to watch as the world collapsed, but I needed more than just rage. I needed a plan. The adrenaline coursing through my veins told me it was time to act, but the voice in my head whispered caution. Revenge could be as sweet as honey, but it could just as easily turn bitter. "You need to be smart about this," I muttered to myself, the wind catching my words and carrying them off into the night. I stepped back from the railing, turning away from the horizon and diving into the dimly lit stairwell that led back down to the street. My mind raced as I thought about the people in my life, the friends who had stood by me, the family that had shown unwavering support. I could not drag them into the chaos I was about to create. I needed a way to keep my life intact while tearing down the life Sarah and David had built together. I wanted them to know that their betrayal had consequences. Fire escaped my lips as I exhaled sharply, determined to put my thoughts into action. Outside, the city pulsated with life. I shoved my hands into my jacket pockets and strode down the sidewalk, feeling the past few weeks weigh heavily on my shoulders. Not much longer now, I whispered to myself, resolute in my purpose. My phone buzzed and I glanced at the screen. It was Aaron, my old buddy from college, one of the few people I could still trust. "Liam, you alive or what?" His text read, along with an array of emojis that somehow tried to convey concern mixed with humor. I couldn't help but smile. Typing in a quick "what's up," I waited for his response. A moment later, the vibration indicated he had replied. "Let's grab a drink at the usual spot. Need to discuss life's mysteries." The familiar place we had parted ways at so many times before was a cozy bar tucked away in East Village, a dark haven filled with the laughter of friends and the clink of glasses. I had always thought about how much wisdom could be found in that bar, and tonight I needed it more than ever. I made my way there through the bustling streets, the aroma of street food from vendors drifting in the air. Most people hurried past, heads down, bundled against the chill, but I was walking with purpose. Each step echoed my resolve, building on my desire to concoct the perfect plan. The neon sign of the bar glowed like a beacon as I padded inside, the warmth enveloping me like a hug from an old friend. The bar was lively, a cacophony of laughter and animated conversations danced through the air. I spotted Aaron seated at our usual booth at the back, nursing a pint of lager. He looked up, his expression brightened. "Liam, over here." He waved me over, his shaggy hair tousled and his blue eyes shining with mischief. "Hey man, nice to see you," I said, sliding into the booth across from him. The wooden surface felt warm against my palms, instantly grounding me. "You look like hell," Aaron noted, his gaze sharp and assessing. "Is everything all right? I got the feeling something's off." "Yeah, just the usual work stress," I lied smoothly, not wanting to dip into the chaos that was engulfing my life. I waved the bartender over and ordered a whiskey, needing something stronger to fortify me against what was to come. Aaron raised an eyebrow with disbelief. "Work stress? Since when do you drink whiskey just for work?" He leaned forward, arms crossed across the table. "You can't fool me, Liam. Spill it. What's really going on?" I sighed, leaning back in my seat, my defenses crumbling a little. "You know Sarah, right? I mean, we dated for a while." "Yeah, I remember." Expression shifted as his brows furrowed. "What's she got to do with you drinking like there's no tomorrow?" I swallowed, the bitter burn of whiskey matching the tension in my gut. She's with David now." Aaron's eyes widened, then his expression softened. "Oh man, I'm sorry, that sucks." "It gets worse," I said, leaning closer to lower my voice. "I'm not going to let them get away with it. I want to make them pay." He seemed to contemplate my words for a moment, the wheels in his mind turning. "Pay, huh? What are you thinking?" I leaned forward as well, the intensity of my voice rising. "I want them to know that their actions have consequences. David took everything from me, and Sarah, she betrayed my trust. They have to feel what I felt." Aaron looked taken aback, a hint of concern etched across his face. "Liam, you're talking about revenge. This isn't some movie. There are real-life consequences." "Real-life consequences," I echoed, my voice low with conviction. "I know that better than anyone. What they've done, it deserves something more. And they don't deserve forgiveness," he asked softly, eyes searching mine. "Forgiveness? This isn't about forgiveness." I shook my head, the heat in my chest rising. "I've been patient, too patient, drawing the whole thing out like some twisted game. I don't need a philosophical discussion, Aaron. I need a plan." There was a moment of silence between us, the bar sounds fading into the background while I focused on the urgency at hand. "All right, you want a plan." Aaron leaned back, still assessing me. "What do you have in mind?" "I need to gather intel," I said, my voice steady now. "Find a way to get under their skin, rattle them a bit. Show them I'm not someone to be toyed with. I need to expose their relationship, let the world know just who David really is." Aaron nodded slowly, still skeptical but intrigued. How are you planning to do that? You can't just blast it on social media. They'll see your hand. I paused, swirling my glass thoughtfully, the amber liquid catching the light. You're right, I need a strategic approach. I don't want to just embarrass them, I want to dismantle their lives piece by piece. And you think you can do that? He leaned forward, a mix of admiration and concern in his gaze. Absolutely, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. I know their routine. David's got that charity gala coming up in a couple of weeks. He's been bragging about it. That'll be my chance. Charity gala. Aaron raised an eyebrow, intrigued now. What's that going to do? Expose them, I replied, my mind racing with possibilities. They'll be front and center, flaunting their relationship in front of everyone important. I just need to create a little distraction, have an accident happen that gets everyone talking. That sounds risky, he said, clearly worried about the wheels I was turning in my head. You sure you want to go this far? I leaned closer across the table, my voice urgent. You don't understand, Aaron. It's not just about making them uncomfortable. It's about taking back my life, taking back my dignity. I can't keep letting them win. For a moment, Aaron's eyes searched mine. He could see the desperation there, the burning need for justice. Okay, he replied, deciding to back me up, but you need a solid plan. If we are going to do this, we have to do it right. Right, I exhaled, relief washing over me. That's why I wanted you here, man. You're the brains. I'm just the guy with the idea. I don't know about that, Aaron said, cracking a slow grin, but I'm in. Let's come up with a way to rattle their cage. Just promise me we focus on the plan and don't let emotions lead us. I smirked, lifting my glass in agreement, savoring the warmth that spread within me as I took a sip. Deal. As we began outlining our strategies, the bar buzzed with life around us, but all I could focus on was the ticking clock of revenge. The tension started to rise again in my chest, not from fear but from excitement. I could see the pieces falling into place. It felt like the beginning of something monumental. With every flick of my wrist as I took notes, with each smirk exchanged with Aaron, I felt more alive than I had in weeks. I finally had a direction, a purpose, and I wasn't going to let it slip away. I was going to rise from the ashes of betrayal, not merely to survive but to thrive. The night was still young, and unlike Sarah and David, I was not going to sit quietly. I could already feel the ropes of their deception tightening around them, waiting for the right moment to break free. And soon it would be time to strike. The rain fell heavily that night, each drop a relentless reminder of my building rage. I stood on the balcony of my apartment, the view of the city below obscured by dark clouds and sheets of rain. New York City, usually so vibrant and alive, felt like a ghost town at this hour. I could barely hear the honking cars or the distant laughter of night owls. All I could focus on was the storm of emotions swirling inside me, fear, anger, and an unyielding desire for revenge. I reflected on what had led me here, to this precipice of darkness. It all began with Elias Barnett, my former colleague and my architect of despair. Do you really think you can just walk away from everything you did to me? I muttered under my breath, clenching my fists tightly as the memories flooded my mind. Just a month ago, I had it all, a promising job, a home, and a sense of purpose. But Elias had taken that away from me, not just with his cunning deceit, but by manipulating the trust of nearly everyone around me. He had twisted my words and plotted my downfall, and now I was left here, teetering on the edge of vengeance. Suddenly my phone buzzed on the table behind me, cutting through my dark thoughts. I turned, the screen lighting up as I checked the message. It was from Claire. Liam, have you spoken to anyone at the firm? People are asking questions about your last project. A pit formed in my stomach at the thought of what I had lost, but I reminded myself that I had a plan. Tonight would be the night I would confront Elias. I typed a response back. Not yet, but will soon. I will call you later. I tossed the phone aside, my heart pounding. I licked my dry lips, the adrenaline coursing through my veins fueling my determination. The rain continued to fall, a rhythmic tattoo against my window, but I had made my decision. I needed to face Elias head-on. As I grabbed my jacket and stepped out into the storm, I could feel the adrenaline surging through my body. My footsteps echoed in the empty hallway as I made my way to the elevator, every step feeling heavier than the last. I was about to confront the man who had brought me to my knees. I arrived at the bar where Elias liked to hang out after work. The familiar neon lights illuminated the sidewalk, and as I stepped inside, the warm, musky air wrapped around me like an unwelcome embrace. The chatter of voices filled my ears, mingling with the clinking of glasses. I spotted him at the far end of the bar, laughing heartily, a drink in hand. Elias, with his perfectly styled hair and tailored suit, looked like he belonged here. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as his laughter echoed in my ears. I forced myself to walk forward, each step heavy with purpose. The crowd parted slightly as I approached him, my breath quickening. "Elias Barnett," I said, my voice gravelly and dripping with accusation. He turned, surprise flickering in his blue eyes before a smirk settled on his lips. "Liam Hargrove, fancy seeing you here. Did you come to congratulate me on my latest promotion?" His tone was mocking, his arrogance evident in his posture. "No, I didn't come to congratulate you." I leaned in closer, making sure to keep my voice low so that only he could hear. "I came to settle a score." The way his face darkened told me that I had struck a nerve, and I felt a surge of satisfaction at his discomfort. "Settle a score? Is that what you think this is?" he sneered, rolling his eyes as he took a sip from his glass. "You sound like a jilted lover, Liam. Grow up. You lost. I won." His condescension ignited something inside me, turning my anger into a burning fury. "You think you can walk away from what you did to me? After everything you orchestrated to ruin my life?" I spat, the bitterness coating my words like poison. "Ruin your life? You did that yourself," he replied coolly, glancing around as if seeking an escape. I could see the hint of fear behind his bravado. "You let others pull you down. Take some responsibility, Liam." It's hard to take responsibility for something when you have people like you sabotaging everything. I leaned in further, the heat of my anger radiating toward him. "I know what you did. I know about your little schemes to frame me for that project." He chuckled, the sound dripping with disdain. "You really need to stop watching crime dramas, my friend. They are not real life." My fists clenched at his dismissive tone, but I took a deep breath, willing myself to stay calm. "This isn't just banter, Elias. I am through being a punching bag. I want to see you pay for what you did to me." "Oh, Liam, you are so naive. Pay for what? You bring me nothing but entertainment," he replied, grinning like a cat that caught a mouse. "No one believes your accusations, and honestly, they never will. You know how easy it is to twist the narrative in a way that benefits the powerful. I am the powerful one now." "Is that what you think? You are untouchable," I taunted, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "You think your position will always protect you?" The bar's atmosphere felt charged, and I couldn't tell if it was just me or if the tension hung heavy in the air. Elias leaned back against the bar, his posture relaxed as though he enjoyed the game we were playing. "I think you ought to rethink your strategy, Liam. You've always been the underdog, and look where that has gotten you. I'm practically a titan while you are, well, just a ghost." "Maybe it's time for the ghost to haunt you," I said, my voice steady. "You think this is over? You have no idea what I have planned." "Oh, do enlighten me," he replied, his eyes wide with feigned curiosity. "Are you going to rally your former colleagues? Maybe they will come to rescue their misguided friend." I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "You don't even know it's already begun." The words tumbled out of my mouth, each one dripping with intent as I revealed nothing of my plans. "I have everything I need to bring you down, Elias. The evidence, the people, they are all in place. I am just getting started." His smirk faltered for a fleeting second, and I savored that moment. "You really think you can turn this around? You're grasping at straws, Liam. I have secured my position. You will only hurt yourself more." As the crowd continued to revel around us, I could feel the storm inside me brewing to a breaking point. "No, no, no," I said, holding up a finger as if I were a teacher correcting a student. "You misunderstand me. I will not hurt myself. I will show you and everyone else that the truth always comes out. Be ready for it." He raised an eyebrow, curiosity now mixed with a tinge of apprehension. "What do you mean by that?" "Exactly what I said. You've underestimated me, and once the truth comes to light, you will find out just how powerful I can be." Our staring contest stretched like an elastic band about to snap. I could see his mind racing, desperately trying to calculate how much I knew and what he needed to say to protect himself. The tension was palpable, and I almost felt like I could reach out and touch the invisible line that separated us. "Enough games, Liam. I do not have time for your little fantasies, he spat, his veneer of confidence cracking slightly. Just remember what it was like to be on top. It can all change in an instant. I turned to leave, wanting to make my exit on my own terms, taking the last remnants of my dignity with me. Where are you going? He called after me, his voice tinged with urgency. This conversation is not finished. Without turning back, I smiled, a slow, deliberate curve of my lips. It will be soon enough, Elias. Just wait. You'll find out exactly who you are dealing with. With that, I stepped back out into the deluge that was still pouring down, the rain soaking me to the bone in an instant. The cold water hit my skin, but the chill felt good, refreshing, even cleansing me of the fears that had plagued me. There was no going back now. My path was clear. I walked away, each step a triumph as my resolve hardened. Revenge was no longer a whisper in my heart. It had become a roaring fire demanding to be fed. I had ignited it, and there was no turning back. The storm within me matched the storm outside, and soon both were set to collide. I sat at the bar in that dimly lit corner of the Rusty Nail, the buzz of conversation and clinking glasses my backdrop, a soundtrack to my stormy thoughts. It was late, the neon signs flickering outside casting a muted glow on the faces of the patrons who leaned into their drinks, oblivious to the dark cloud that loomed over my heart. Each sip of whiskey burned my throat, a bitter reminder of the chaos I had orchestrated. Behind me, a group of guys laughed raucously, their carefree joy a sharp contrast to the heavy weight that sat on my chest, suffocating me little by little. I needed to unravel the knots in my mind, understand what I had truly set in motion. "Hey, you okay?" The barmaid approached, wiping her hands on a stained apron, concern etched across her features as she leaned against the counter, her head cocked slightly to the side. "You look like you just lost a fight." I chuckled bitterly, scanning the room to avoid her eyes. More like I lost a battle with my own demons. My voice was lower than I intended, cracking slightly under the strain of my emotions. The barmaid raised an eyebrow, intrigued, but I couldn't share this with her. Not now, not ever. "Want to talk about it?" she offered, inviting me into her world of simple joys and whiskey spills, but I shook my head, taking another drink to mask how deeply I felt. I was spinning in circles, trapped in my thoughts. The plan I had set in motion was both exhilarating and terrifying. What if the pieces all fell neatly into place? But what if they did? The memory of Karma's shocked face when Ash had turned against her surged in my mind like a tidal wave, hitting hard. I was glad to have pulled the rug out from under her, to see for the first time the fear in those eyes that had spent too long glaring from above. She had walked on too many heads, and I wanted nothing more than to see her knock down a peg, to watch her squirm in the mess she had made. "I can give you some time," the barmaid spoke up again, placing a napkin in front of me with the subtle grace of someone used to dealing with people's emotions. "But just remember, drowning in whiskey won't fix things." "Sure it does," I replied, leaning back and crossing my arms. "In fact, it makes everything disappear, if only for a little while." But even I was aware of how false that statement felt. Inside, the arrows of guilt I had aimed at Karma only circulated in my own heart. I took another deep drink, letting the warmth spread through my veins as if it were a shield against the roaring thoughts that echoed in my skull. I forced myself to refocus on the room, watching as the bartender served beers to a group of friends who cheered for some sporting event playing on the TV above. Their laughter felt foreign to me now, like the wind rustling leaves on a fall day, beautiful yet distant. I couldn't remember the last time I laughed. The shouts of "Go team" rolled over me. It was a futile reminder of how normal life could really be and how quickly it had unraveled for me. I needed to face the truth, my own reflection buried behind layers of bitterness. I let out a quiet breath, the weight of the world resting heavier against my shoulders. Bottom line, I finally said, turning to the barmaid, "I've got to deal with something. Something between me and someone who needs to be shown how the other side of power can look." "What do you mean by that? You sound serious." She leaned in, her voice almost conspiratorial, and for a second it felt good to unburden myself, even to a stranger. "More like I'm gearing up for a reckoning," I mused, my mind racing back to the particular circumstances that led me here. "A chance for next-level justice. My own kind of justice." Her eyes narrowed a little, the inquisitive glint shining through. Like revenge. I nodded slowly, the weight of that word settling heavily. You could call it that, but it feels more like unraveling a tapestry, pulling the thread so everything frays. I see, she whispered, folding her arms in front of her, weighing my words. But be careful, Liam. Sometimes you pull the wrong thread and you end up trapped in it yourself. Trust me, I said, catching a glimpse of the kaleidoscope of colors from the neon lights casting shadows of past sins over her face. I know what he's capable of. I've seen it firsthand. Ash, the name felt like a flickering flame in my mind, bringing back memories that I would rather bury. Ash had been my best friend once, a brother, and now he was my sworn enemy, a puppeteer standing behind the curtain of our lives, pulling strings to control everyone around him for his twisted games. And Karma. She was just a pawn caught in his path, but now she was my catalyst. The two of them danced together on the line of betrayal. I have to take him down. He's hurt too many people and I won't let him carry on like this. Not anymore. What did he do to you? She asked softly, her eyes widening as she searched for sincerity behind my clouded gaze. Let me tell you a story about trust, I managed. Once there were three of us, me, Ash, and Karma. We were a unit, a trio forged in the fires of friendship. Then darkness seeped in. Ash started to manipulate things, making sure he held the upper hand. In everything, I never saw it coming. The words spilled from my mouth, each recalling a memory that stung like a fresh bruise. It wasn't just petty, it was cruel. Ash made choices that hurt people, including me. It's just that I thought he was better than that. The barmaid leaned closer, curiously biting her lip as I spoke. One day, he completely crossed a line. He stripped me of my dignity in front of everyone I cared about, all because I challenged his control. That humiliation, it changed me. Just saying it out loud felt like raw steak against my vocal cords, splitting my heart wide open. And when you feel humiliated and powerless, it chips away at your soul, makes you desperate for a thrill, a spark of something. Anything. The barmaid seemed to understand that look in my eyes, a million emotions tangled in the spill of my secrets. So now you want him to feel that same way. Exactly, I seethed, pounding my fist lightly on the bar, a feeling of clarity rushing back over me like a wave. I want him to understand what happens when you wield power without respect, how it feels when the illusion of supremacy is peeled back, exposing the vulnerability that lies underneath. Nodded slowly, absorbing every word as if it were finely crafted poetry. What about Karma? I'm not blind to her involvement, I admitted, frowning. She knew what was happening. She played the role of my best friend even while dating Ash. She laughed at my downfalls but was quick to switch sides when it suited her. They could have stopped it, but they didn't. They let things spiral until I couldn't breathe. And now you're planning something. I hesitated, feeling a swell of the urge to reveal my plans. Tomorrow night, there is a fundraiser at the Sapphire Gala, a perfect opportunity. All the high rollers, all the players of this pathetic game will be there in their designer suits and sparkling jewels, pleased with themselves. I'll draw them in like moths to a flame. That sounds risky. Risk is part of the game, I said, my heart racing as I spoke about it. If I'm going to show them how it truly feels to be vulnerable, this is where I start. Her eyes sparkled with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Have you thought through the consequences? What happens if Ash retaliates? Let him, I replied, feeling the fire burning brightly within. Watch as he scrambles to regain control. Watch how he erodes, how everything he has built can crumble into dust. The barmaid studied me for a moment, and I could see the skepticism dance in her eyes. You really believe this is the way? I deserve to have my own power restored, I said, the heat in my voice betraying the underlying vulnerability. And until I see Ash exposed, I will never know peace. It was true, each moment felt like an endless loop of torment I could only confront once I forced my enemies to face their judgment day. Good luck, she said at last, her tone shifting into a supportive softness. She pushed the whiskey bottle toward me with a tentative smile. I hope you find what you're looking for. I returned her smile, appreciating her. Thanks, I'll need it. With that, I turned back toward the bar, staring into the amber liquid, feeling the promise of destruction simmering just beneath the surface of this freedom I was crafting. I raised the glass, letting the harsh but warming flood cascade down the back of my throat. Ash would have his reckoning, and I would be ready to pull every thread in my path, ready to watch the tapestry unravel in a glorious storm of chaos.